Hare Krishna, everyone. My name is Akhanda Das. We'll get started with verse 26 of chapter 14, Canto 1 in the Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so once again, Canto 1, Chapter 14, verse 26 through 29 is what we'll cover today. All right, so verse 26. Suro matama kachit swasti aste vatamarisha matula sanuja kachit kushali anakadundubi. Translation. Is my respectable grandfather Surasen in a happy mood? And are my maternal uncle Vasudev and his younger brothers all doing well? We'll read through verse 29, then we'll have the discussion. Next verse 27. Saptasvasaras panyo matulanya sahatmaja asate shashnusa kshemam devaki pramukha swayam. Translation. His 7 wives, headed by Devaki, are all sisters. Are they and their sons and daughters-in-law all happy? Next verse. This is verse 28, 29, again of chapter 14, Canto 1. Kachid Rajahuko Jivati Asatputro Shachanuja Hidika Shashuto Kruro Jayantagada Sharana Asate Kushalam Kachid Yecha Shatrujit Adaya Kachidaste Sukham Ramo Bhagavan Satvatam Prabhu. We'll read the word for word. There's some specific parts of the verse that are being repeated in the last few verses. Kachit, whether. Raja, the king. Ahuka, another name of Ugrasena. Jivati, still living. Asat, mischievous. Putra, son. Asya, his. Ja, also. Anuja, younger brother. Hridika, Sasuta, along with son. Kritavarma. Akrura. Jayanta, Kada. Sharana. Asate, are they all? Kushalam, in happiness. Kachit, whether. Ye, they. Cha, also. Shatrujit. Adaya, headed by. Kachit, whether. Aste, are they. Sukham, all right. Rama, Balaram. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Satvatam, of the devotees. Prabhu, protector. Translation. Our Ugrasena, whose son was the mischievous Kamsa and his younger brother still living, are Hridika and his son Kritavarma happy? Are Akrura, Jayanta, Gada, Sharana, and Shatrujit all happy? How is Balaram, the personality of Godhead and the protector of devotees? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Hastinapur, the capital of the Pandavas, was situated somewhere near present New Delhi, and the kingdom of Ugrasena was situated in Mathura. While returning to Delhi from Dwarka, Arjuna must have visited the city of Mathura, and therefore the inquiry about the king of Mathura is valid. Amongst various names of the relatives, the name of Rama or Balaram, eldest brother of Lord Krishna, is added, with the words, the personality of Godhead, because Lord Balaram is the immediate expansion of Vishnu Tattva as Prakasha Vigraha of Lord Krishna. The Supreme Lord, although one without a second, expands himself as many other living beings. The Vishnu Tattva living beings are expansions of the Supreme Lord, and all of them are qualitatively and quantitatively equal with the Lord. But expansions of the Jiva Shakti, the category of the ordinary living beings, are not at all equal with the Lord. One who considers the Jiva Shakti and the Vishnu Tattva to be on an equal level is considered a condemned soul of the world. Sri Rama or Balaram is the protector of the devotees of the Lord. Baladev acts as the spiritual master of all devotees, and by his causeless mercy, the fallen souls are delivered. Sri Baladev appeared as Sri Nityananda Prabhu during the advent of Lord Chaitanya, and the great Lord Nityananda exhibited his causeless mercy by delivering a pair of extremely fallen souls, namely Jagai and Madai. Therefore, it is particularly mentioned herein that Balaram is the protector of the devotees of the Lord. By his divine grace, only one can approach the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, and thus Sri Balaram is the mercy incarnation of the Lord, manifested as the spiritual master and the savior of the pure devotees. Okay. So before we discuss the exact topics in these verses, just to shed some light on the overall context here. So this this chapter is entitled Lord Krishna's Disappearance, chapter 14 of Canto 1. So Lord Krishna, he had originally descended on to earth for a specific purpose, which was to annihilate the demons and reestablish order. And that was by installing Yudhishthira as the rightful ruler. So he was in charge of the kingdom after the war. So that whole activity had been mostly finished after the Kurukshetra war, right? The order had been restored after that war. So Krishna's purpose was starting to wrap up. And so King Yudhishthira had sent Arjuna to Dwarka to find out what Krishna is up to and learn about his next set of activities. So Arjuna had left towards Dwarka to spend some time and understand what Krishna has been up to. And many months had passed and Arjuna hadn't returned. And Yudhishthira got anxious, right? There was no communication as to why Arjuna hadn't returned yet. And in addition to that, King Yudhishthira started to see these inauspicious things starting to happen, these inauspicious omens. And so he started to get worried as to what's going on. Finally, Arjuna returns, and immediately Yudhishthira asks all these questions that we just went through, right? He immediately asks him, how's everyone doing in Dwarka? And he goes through all these various relatives, Surasen, Vasudev, Devaki, his elders and other relatives there. It's actually, it's a very natural question to ask. It's part of common culture, right? When someone has gone somewhere, and especially if it's family and they've returned back to your home, you ask, hey, how was it? That's how we ask today. How was it, or how was it going? And Yudhishthira is just asking specifically, how are so and so folks doing? So when we look at some of the main points from the purport of verse 28-29, this last verse that we just read, there's a fair amount of focus on the Vishnu Tattva and the Jiva Shakti, right? So it's mentioned how Lord Balaram is addressed as the personality of Godhead because he's the immediate expansion of Vishnu Tattva. He's the first expansion of Krishna, Lord Balaram. And any of the expansions within the Vishnu Tattva are expansions of the Supreme Lord. So they're very much equal with the Lord. And then Lord Balaram, of course, served as Anantashesha in many other ways. And the purport is specifically making this fundamental point where expansions of the Jiva Shakti are not equal with the Lord. There's no case of where that could happen. And then the point that's really emphasized on by Srila Prabhupada in the purport is, well, in the translation, Yudhishthira's, King Yudhishthira especially ends with addressing Lord Balaram, and the sort of the phrasing that King Yudhishthira is using is Satvatam Prabhu, so the protector of the devotees. So he's asking, how is Lord Balaram the protector of the devotees? And I thought that could be an interesting topic to discuss today, or to go deeper into. How is Lord Balaram the protector of the devotees, and how we can meditate on that inner Krishna consciousness? And again, the example that Srila Prabhupada gives in the purport is how Jagai and Madai were given protection by Lord Balaram, right? I mean, Lord Chaitanya had taken out his chakra, and Lord Balaram was the one that that was so merciful. It says he's the incarnation of mercy, and he was that one that delivered Jagai and Madai in this case. So I guess before we get into exactly this aspect or this quality of Lord Balaram as a protector of devotees, there were two things I figured we'd get into. One is that, and the other aspect was Lord Balaram's relationship with Lord Krishna in some of the pastimes. But let's first maybe understand who Lord Balaram is in the first place. Some qualities that Srila Prabhupada is talking about is Balaram acts as the spiritual master for all the devotees. He gives this spiritual strength and spiritual knowledge as we keep trying to advance inner Krishna consciousness. Balaram loves to serve Lord Krishna. Even though Balaram is Krishna's elder brother, he loves to serve Krishna. In fact, it's said that he serves Krishna all the 5 rasas. He also has this unique quality where he manifests himself as paraphernalia for Krishna to use. Everything that Krishna uses in his pastimes, it's Lord Balaram. In fact, I was saying before, Anantashesha, who's another form of Lord Balaram, he's holding everything together. All the planets, it's Anantashesha that's holding it together. And so again, Lord Balaram is such a key person in serving Krishna. And I think a very important point here is that only through Lord Balaram can one approach Krishna. Again, Jagai and Madai had to approach through Lord Nityananda to get mercy of Lord Chaitanya at the end of the day. So this quality of how does Lord Balaram serve as a protector of the devotees of the Lord? When we think about the pastimes that are described in the Krishna book, right, where Krishna is killing all these demons, when you read these stories at a face value, it might seem that they're killing these demons, and that's sort of the main point. But actually, there's like a specific description by Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where they talk about how Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, in terms of killing the demons, including Balaram, who was killing the demons, they're actually removing obstacles in one's devotional service. Like each demon represents some obstacle in a person's Krishna consciousness. I mean, literally, Krishna and Balaram were removing or killing these demons because these demons were obstacles for the residents of Vraja. But, symbolically, each demon represents some sort of obstacle in our material life that Krishna and Balaram are removing. And so an example is Putana, one of the first demons that Krishna kills. I think the one that's used for Putana is that she represented false teachings or false teachers. And so Krishna kills that aspect and removes that obstacle. Krishna kills most of the demons, but there's two demons that Lord Balaram killed himself. And those two demons represent these two obstacles that are really important to understand. Lord Balaram is protecting us, and because these two obstacles are very big, or could be very big in our Krishna consciousness. So we have to pray to Lord Balaram for that spiritual strength and his mercy to kill those two very obstacles. So the first demon that Lord Balaram kills is the Dhenukasura, right? The Dhenukasura was Kamsa's buddy. This demon had this mystic power where he could transform himself into many different shapes. And so Dhenuka came into this forest, Stalvan forest, and the residents of Vrindavan couldn't go into that forest because this demon was residing there. Of course, the story goes where Balaram picks up the demon with his hind leg, spins him around, and the demon falls onto the street in the forest, and that's it. The demon passes away. But the description is specifically used that it takes just one or two swirls by Lord Balaram, and that's it. This demon is knocked out. But again, so this demon actually represents this obstacle of gross material intelligence. What I mean by that is this people that are intellectual atheists, scientists who are atheists that never take shelter of Krishna. There's this blind faith in science, as Srila Prabhupada talks about it. This obstacle is actually mentioned in verse 15 of chapter 7 in the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm just going to read. So Krishna talks about 4 types of people that never surrender unto Krishna. And Dhenuka represents one of these 4 types of people that never surrender to Krishna. I'm just going to read a description of this class of people from that purport of, again, chapter 7, verse 15 from the Bhagavad Gita. It says the next class of Dushkriti is called Mayaya Partha Jnana, or those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of illusory material energy. They're mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, scientists, but the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. There are a great number of Maya Partha Jnana at the present moment, even amongst the scholars of Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, in plain and simple language, it is stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and then it says, like later in that purport, all unauthorized interpretations of Gita by the class of Maya Partha Jnana outside the purview of Parampara system are so many stumbling blocks on the path of spiritual knowledge. There's this aspect sometimes, in our Krishna consciousness, where we try to apply a scientific lens and try to understand everything through this lens of science, or this great material scholarship, so to speak. And again, Dhenukar represented that. And if we try to dissect every single thing by this lens, it's hard to progress in Krishna consciousness sometimes like that. And so we have to pray to Lord Balaram to remove that obstacle. It may not be an obstacle now, but it's something that can manifest later as time passes on. Especially this obstacle of removing blind faith in what things might be saying out there, and that could distract us from Krishna consciousness. So Lord Balaram can give us that strength to surpass that. Dhenukar in his previous life, he was the son of Bali Maharaj in his previous life. And as we know, Krishna had, Krishna in the form of Lord Nrsimhadev had promised Prahlad Maharaj that he wouldn't kill the next 7 generations himself of Prahlad Maharaj. So Krishna had Balaram kill Dhenukasura instead, right, in this case. The second demon that Lord Balaram kills in the Vrindavan pastime is Pralambasura. This demon also had a mystic power where he had this capacity to change his shape to whatever the demon needed to be. And in this particular case, one of the things that cowherd boys in Vrindavan would do is, they would wrestle each other just for fun. They would wrestle, and whoever would win that wrestling match, or so the loser would have to pick up the winner on their shoulders and walk back towards home. That was sort of how they would play. And so Pralambasura, this demon, he transformed himself into a cowherd boy, and he appeared in the middle of in the middle of all these cowherd boys and started playing. And so Balaram happened to wrestle with this cowherd boy who was in the form of who was originally a demon. And Balaram won that playful wrestling, and so the demon was carrying Lord Balaram back towards home. That was part of the way they played specifically. And as all the cowherd boys were heading back, Pralamba started to veer off path. Again, he was carrying Balaram, and he started to walk in a different direction. And it's described that Balaram's, the word is specifically like he slowly started to realize, oh, this is someone else. This is a demon. Because and Balaram, started to make himself heavy on the demon. And Pralamba's body also then started to get bigger and bigger, and this cowherd boy form turned into this giant demonic form. Again, Balaram, just knocks him out with a punch, and the demon is dead at that point. So this specific demon represents this obstacle that one can have of wanting to have recognition. This desire for special recognition, or this wanting to be the center of attention is what this demon represented, Pralambasura. And so Balaram removes that obstacle in this demon. I think wanting recognition, wanting recognition at work, for example, or any sort of material aspect is sometimes, devotees say that it's somewhat easy to refuse. You just kind of disconnect yourself from the material competition or the competition at work or your friends, and you're able to sort of pull back sometimes. But then what tends to happen is that maybe this desire for special recognition takes place in devotional service, right? You do a service, and there could be this special want of recognition from your spiritual master, from other devotees. So actually, it could be a massive problem in progressing in Krishna consciousness, where there's some expectation of recognition when you've done something. And so this is another obstacle that we can pray to Lord Balaram to, for protection of that, from that, so it doesn't harm our progression towards Krishna consciousness. There's many Prabhupada stories where Srila Prabhupada would remove that obstacle for certain devotees that were expecting this recognition. But yeah, I think it's important we keep praying to Lord Balaram for that, again, that spiritual strength to not face that obstacle in our Krishna consciousness, especially because if it doesn't manifest in your material day-to-day life, it's very easy for it to manifest in your Krishna consciousness. Switching gears a bit, I thought we could also discuss a bit about Krishna's relationship with Lord Balaram. So again, I was saying that Lord Balaram wanted to serve Krishna in every possible way, and so it's discussed, in there's actually a disagreement in Chaitanya Bhagavat between Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, where the argument is, or the disagreement is on who delivered Jagai Madai specifically. Lord Nityananda is saying that, hey, Lord Chaitanya, it was you who delivered Jagai Madai, and Lord Chaitanya is saying, no, it was you, Lord Nityananda, who delivered Jagai Madai. But it's Lord Nityananda who showed that compassion. And because Lord Nityananda showed that compassion on Jagai Madai, that's why Lord Chaitanya then delivered Jagai Madai. So when we're sort of praying for that strength or that mercy from Lord, we have to get Lord Balaram's mercy. So then, we're successful in our path of devotional service. And there's interesting pastimes where, Lord Balaram serves Krishna by staying silent, or just by sort of going with Lord Krishna's pastimes, even though he's his elder brother. When the whole pastime happened of where Lord Brahma stole all the cows and the calves, at that point, Krishna manifested himself to represent all these cowherd boys, right? To fill that gap, because Brahma had stolen all of them. And Krishna decided not to tell Balaram. So Balaram doesn't go and complain and tell Krishna's parents, hey, Krishna's done this thing again where he's, some mischievous thing. So Krishna decides not to tell Lord Balaram that for 1 year, Krishna has basically, taken up this form of the various cowherd boys, so the gopis and the mothers don't get scared. But then Balaram notices that, as Krishna has replaced or taken this form of all the cows and newborn calves, that all these cows are leaving their newborn calves. Like, who does that? We just as a cow, if you've given birth to a newborn calf, you don't just walk away from your child. The cows are absorbed in a different mood, is what Balaram notices, which is not typical. Balaram then also notices that all the gopis are loving their children, these cowherd boys, so much. They're really into their loving their kids, which again seems normal from our perspective. But in Vrindavan, it's described where no one is actually that much caring about their kids, because they're so Krishna centric. They're just, the gopis are wondering where Lord Krishna is. But in this case, Balaram notices that the gopis are just paying attention to their kids, and Balaram is wondering, why are the gopis loving their kids so much? That's not something that happens in Vrindavan. And so, but the point is, Balaram stays silent, lets it happen, and he's serving Krishna by not sort of spoiling this pastime. So he's serving Krishna in that mood. There's of course that famous pastime of where Balaram wanted Subhadra, who's their younger sister, to marry Duryodhana, but Krishna has a very different plan. And again, it's a very interesting exchange how Krishna and Balaram interact in that perspective. So again, outside of Dwarka, this sannyasi shows up, and the rumor spreads that any unmarried girls can show their hands to this sannyasi, and the sannyasi will tell you which boy you'll end up getting married to. That sannyasi was Arjuna that shows up. And Subhadra always wanted to marry Arjuna, and so somehow to avoid getting married to someone else, she goes to the sannyasi and just wants to find out, and make sure that can be avoided. As Subhadra comes, Arjuna immediately takes off his sannyasi attire and kidnaps Subhadra. And Balaram sees this and gets mad, saying, "This is irreligion. This is irreligion," to Krishna. He's telling Krishna, "This is adharma. What's going on?" And then Krishna in the moment asks Balaram, "Was the disrobing of Draupadi dharma? How did that happen, and how are you calling this adharma?" Balaram says, "All right, to Krishna, Arjuna should be killed. This shouldn't be happening." And Arjuna thinks he has to prepare to fight. So Arjuna tells Subhadra, "Hey, you drive the chariot. Let me sit in the back seat in case I have to fight." And when Krishna and Balaram look, they see that Subhadra is the one now that's driving the chariot, and not Arjuna. And so then Krishna tells, "Look, it's actually Subhadra that's kidnapping Arjuna, not Arjuna kidnapping Subhadra." And then of course, Balaram calms down. But again, this is another pastime where he's respecting his elder brother and participating in this pastime by just letting it happen. Again, he has this innate quality of wanting to serve Krishna. It's actually said that in Vrindavan in the early days, Balaram was mostly present at every place with Krishna. In fact, Mother Yashoda wanted Balaram to be there at all times with Krishna. During the Kali Lila, where Krishna's dancing on top of the serpent, that's actually a day where Balaram wasn't there at the lake with Krishna. All these inauspicious omens started to take place, and the Brajavasis realized that it's because Balaram wasn't there on that day that all these inauspicious omens were taking place. That day was actually Balaram's appearance day, the day where the Kaliya pastime happened. And Balaram had stayed home that day to give charity to everyone, to the Brahmanas. But that was the one day Lord Balaram hadn't come, and all the inauspicious omens started to take place. Of course, Krishna defeats Kaliya, but or gives his mercy to Kaliya, but just shows that when Balaram is not there, the residents notice that. So again, look, going back to the purport where it talks about Lord Balaram as the protector of devotees, sort of my takeaway when I was reading this passage was Lord Balaram, one, exemplifies the utmost service to Lord Krishna. He does it by example, and we can take something from that. And there's so many passages. I just talked about Krishna and Balaram, but there's how Lord Nityananda serves Lord Chaitanya. There's how Lakshman serves Lord Ram. That service mood can be imbibed. And the second thing that I felt was important was how we can continue to pray to Lord Balaram for removing those obstacles in our Krishna consciousness, and to give us that spiritual strength to remain fixed. And so whenever we face those obstacles, we can always think of him for that strength. So those are some of the main points I wanted to cover. I'm not, the most well-versed, so I would ask any of the devotees on this call to please add to anything that I might have missed, or further, correct me or make these points stronger. So I'll stop here for anyone to add anything further. Or for any comments otherwise.
Hare Krishna, Akhanda Nam Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Premananda. I have nothing to add, but I asked you to speak since you moved here, and probably you spoke before. This is the first time I had a chance to hear from you, and I just wanted to express my deep appreciation for you participating in the Bhagavatam discussion group. And it's always a great pleasure for me to hear my children. You are my children. So, you grew up under our care here as a little baby. And here you are speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, and it gives me great pleasure to hear from you. Very nicely spoken, systematic, wonderful presentation. Just wanted to express my gratitude and also appreciation for you.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for that. And Priyada Mataji has always been like a mother since I moved here. So the only reason I even thought of doing the service is because Priyada Mataji was encouraged. And so thank you for engaging with the service, Mataji. I'm always indebted to you for all your support and making sure we keep growing in Krishna consciousness, all as kids. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Shatarupadasi. Thank you, Prabhu, for highlighting Lord Balaram's role, or the blessings that what we need to pray to him. I was especially thinking about the 2 points that you made about, one is approaching devotional service with intellectual capacity or some kind of ability that one may have, and the second one was a desire for recognition. It's very subtle, and it comes out in a way that one doesn't even notice, or I don't even notice. But as long as that is there, then the genuine humility or genuine relationships and mood of service is not coming. So if you want to share something about how to identify and the subtler aspects of, wanting recognition.
Yeah. When I was reading this, I was thinking about these two obstacles. I'll just share my personal aspect, Shraddha Mataji. I'm sure you or other senior devotees in this call will have a better way of identifying these things. But I feel like oftentimes when we read the scripture, we try to always reconcile, or we try to, find logic behind it. Like Krishna said this here, and he's opposing it here, or again, like take this school approach, which is how we've been trained our whole life, is to always look at things through empirical evidence, like find evidence in reality, how, this is actually true. I've discussed this with our youth many times, and my peers, where there's simplicity in just accepting or having faith in what the scriptures that have been provided. I think we were discussing in one of the youth bhakti rikshas where, in the Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, in the preface, Prabhupada says, like, before you start reading these books, just have some initial faith. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to accept this. And so that's what I was thinking of, this obstacle of when we don't have the initial faith and we're trying to dissect each and every word, and sort of almost to the point where we're finding fault. It can be an issue. So I don't know. I feel like it's almost the moment you start developing a doubt in something, it's always important to take guidance of someone and perhaps get their help to remove this doubt. And for the second one of wanting special recognition, it's, I feel like as devotees, we're able to walk away from that maybe at times in our work life, but when it comes to this, into Krishna consciousness in service, it subtly comes up. I think Shraddha Mataji, as you were saying, we don't realize it. Like maybe it's coming from a place of our desire to serve the spiritual master or other devotees in the congregation, whatever that might be. But I think one way to identify that is remembering that when we're doing that service, it's to serve Krishna or that senior devotee. We're not exactly serving ourselves, or we're not serving our mind, like by doing this service. We're not, when you're cooking or whatever, you're not trying to see how amazingly I've made this food, but it's remembering that end goal of that you're serving for Krishna. Those are just, I don't know, my thoughts, but I'm sure others have better ways of identifying that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, I think the first one that you said about there's a certain simplicity in accepting scriptures, that made a lot of, that's very nice actually, that point. Thank you so much. And second thing about recognition, trying to remind that I'm not doing this service for my, for fulfilling my mind's demands. Those two are really nice highlights. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. That helps.
Thank you, Mataji. There's nothing else, we can end here. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day and a very Krishna conscious weekend. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you.